Hello everyone and happy Galentine's Day! If you want to see how I go from this to this fun look while hearing me talk about modern day friendships, then please keep on watching. Now, I really love the idea of Galentine's Day because as much as I love Valentine's Day, Galentine's Day allows you to participate even if you don't have a significant other, and it encourages you to do fun things with people you wouldn't typically celebrate otherwise. It's a fun excuse to get the girls together and to do cute things together. Not that you need an excuse to do that, but an annual reminder to touch base with friends is a great thing to have. The handful of important friends I have are scattered around the world, so we couldn't meet up this weekend. But if your friend group is local, I definitely recommend getting together and doing some fun makeup. Not necessarily good makeup because that adds pressure, but fun makeup, which is exactly what I'm doing today. The look I'm going for is purple. Yes, purple, I know. And it is not something I would usually go for if I'm dressing up fancy, but it was a lot of fun to do and it was interesting to see myself with a different aesthetic. But back to the friends I have. Each friendship looks different. I have one friend living one town over that I get to see once every other month or so. We barely text, but we grew up together and we either meet up over a glass of wine or we call each other if there's an update that we want to share. She is in an entirely different sphere of life than I am, so she always has the most interesting topics of discussion to bring up when we are together, and I love hearing her insights. I have one friend living on the other side of the country that I text all day, every day. We went to high school and uni together, and she was my maid of honor when I got married. We have similar backgrounds, but wildly different family histories and life trajectories, so she frequently introduces me to new viewpoints, and she is always down for an insightful conversation. I have one friend I finally had the privilege to meet last year after having been virtual friends for years. And even though we come from such different cultures, we have what I would describe as a deep understanding for each other because we share the good, the bad, and the embarrassing with each other without worrying about appearances. We usually stay in touch online and via video calls. And then I have this other friend in the States that I also touch base with through video calls every so often, and she is the sweetest, most comforting person that I know. We got to know each other as we were getting to know ourselves, which makes her position in my life really special. The thing with all of these friendships is that they were formed in my formative years, between the ages of 11 and 17. They might have developed and changed as we did, and there were stretches of time we weren't always in contact, but that childhood connection is so strong that there is very little that could happen that would result in us cutting contact with each other. We truly know each other after having seen each other develop into the people we are today, and there's no embarrassment or shame in a friendship like that. Now, as a 25-year-old, it is difficult to create new friendships that are equally meaningful and comfortable. Just a second, my cat wants to interrupt.
Hi! Squinchy, come now, come. What are you doing? Hey! Baby girl, I know she's gonna scream, Dad, what have you done? You big bunny girl. To the club, oh mama, I'm just having fun. I'm staging my heels. I'm down at the big bunny club. I just keep on dancing at the big bunny club.
Moving on. Of the 3 important friendships I did form after the age of 18, only one of them worked out in the long run, and that was my husband. However, our relationship also has this undercurrent of growing up together because we met around 18, 19 and we became adults together. We faced a pandemic together and found our footing in a new world together while learning to speak up for ourselves and manage our lives independently. We built a life together and are so fundamental to each other's day-to-day lives that there's no room to hide the embarrassing little things that makes you who you are. And that creates a comfort that I look for in relationships. That comfort never developed in the other 2 important friendships I formed, and that's why those friendships are no longer significant to me today. The one friendship does have a sense of closeness because we have some shared life experiences and we understand each other in a way you don't often find in someone else, but we never really progressed past the occasional coffee date. We did try to become closer friends, but the connection just wasn't strong enough to overcome the awkwardness of being more in each other's space or for it to feel worth it to address bigger issues. It was just more comfortable to leave it at the level it was at and call it a day. Now, while I'm a big supporter of not every friendship needing to be deep and meaningful, the friendship failed to tick some undefined box and became more annoying than comfortable. And now we don't speak to each other unless we happen to run into each other, which, as you move on and start living your own lives, doesn't really happen. And it's not really something that I'm sad about. I thought at the time that being able to relate to each other's childhoods would create enough of a connection to make up for the fact that we didn't grow up together, but it didn't really work out that way. We might have grown together as friends, but not as people. So they did not lie a brick in the foundation of who I am today, and instead they stand outside the house. Even if I invite them in and they become a familiar presence, they will never be a part of the house. But we're all grown up now. Does that mean that that's it? Are the friends that I have now, that are scattered across the world and not physically present in my life, the only friends I will ever have? How is it fair that we can only become good friends with people we happen to go to school with, and that we can never be equally close to people we meet in our adult lives that share our hobbies and passions? There has to be other ways to form close relationships other than sitting in the same classroom. I don't have the answer to that, but I do have another failed friendship to reflect on, where I try to fake it till you make it. I made a friend during my studies who I bonded with over the same stresses of tests and assignments. We became fairly close fairly quickly because we had very similar things happening in our personal lives at the time, and I felt like we understood each other because we seemed to think the same. We became fairly close fairly quickly because we had very similar things happening in our personal lives at the time, and I felt like we understood each other because we seemed to think in the same way. I enjoyed their company and wanted to solidify the friendship into something that would survive graduation, but we hit a wall every time a negative feeling came up between us. It would be awkward and difficult to address tough matters in an environment that was usually so carefree. But I've had friendships before, okay? So I've had difficult conversations with friends before, and I know how it's supposed to play out, even though it's not necessarily fun to do. Except it never played out in the way it should have. Addressing a grievance was never a productive conversation, and it usually developed into an immature argument we would just ignore until enough time had passed. And I was patient about it. I thought it was immature the way it was received when I attempted to have a sincere conversation, but we were all so young, barely into our 20s, and I was immature in my own ways too. I get that being long-term friends means being patient with each other as you learn to face new challenges and improve yourselves. But because we were not growing together, prompts to do so from the other were unwelcome, and we never learned to accept and adapt to each other's differences. Whenever something came up where we were different, it was met with, "That's weird," and the implicit, "You're weird." And it's difficult to be comfortable as yourself with someone who occasionally makes you feel like you're a little weird. Your guards remain half up because it's in the back of your mind that you need to be aware of how this person perceives you and how that's going to influence the friendship going forward. And then here's where I was trying to fake it till I make it, because I intentionally kept my guards down to lead by example and show a comfort in the friendship that I wanted us to share. Hopefully by doing something a little embarrassing or sharing a personal thought from time to time, we would get to know each other well enough for the friendship to turn into what I wanted it to be. And I guess it did work in a sense because they did get more comfortable with me too. They got comfortable enough to show me how little they cared whenever I tried showing how much I cared about them. And eventually I believed what they were saying and backed off from the friendship. It is a shame how much hurt this friendship caused me because I was truly trying to connect with another person. I wasn't trying to force anything or demand anything from them. I was just trying to be a good friend and have one in return. I was a bit bitter about how the whole friendship ended because I was so careful about not getting hurt. I knew what I was opening myself up to, and I was pretty spot on with my predictions of how things would go, even though I was hoping that I was just being negative. The worst part though was how people around me encouraged me to pursue the relationship, even when I shared my struggles with it. It was only in hindsight that I realized that what I was being encouraged to do was pursue a superficial friendship. We follow each other on Instagram and tag each other sometimes. If one person's hosting a party, the other one's probably gonna go, and that looked like a good enough friendship, and you don't really need to get along to be able to do that. Realizing that made me wonder if people still had real friendships out there, or if it's as fake as everything else you see online. Maybe the show Friends was so popular not because people related to it, but because they longed for something similar. Now, what I have come to realize is that even if the 4 core friends I made as a kid are the only friends I'll ever have, they are incredibly important to me, and I will forever cherish the way that they add to my life. But I also believe in platonic love and that you can meet new people and grow with them. 25 is pretty young in the grand scheme of things, and I'm fairly confident that I am far from the only person in this world that wants more meaningful friendships. So stay vulnerable, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep myself open to accepting new connections and stay willing to put in the work to build meaningful connections until I meet people who share my mindset. Either it'll work or I'll be an example of what a good friend looks like. And that's okay too. But then this is the final result. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed making this video, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye bye!
You know I just smile.